Hey KBC Youth, welcome to our segment dedicated to our theme, which is Stories Matter. This semester we're going to explore the stories of church members here at Kirkwood Baptist Church and how their stories can inspire and help us to connect with the world and with others. And tonight I have a special guest with us, which is Bryan. Bryan has been a member of our church for a while now and is currently serving as a team member on the endowment committee. I'm sure as you get older, you'll figure out what an endowment committee is, but it just deals with a lot of money that we have. And then also, Bryan is a surgeon at Mercy Hospital and has been working in the field for, how many years have you been working in the field, Bryan?
Oh, about 35.
Wow. So for 35 years now. Wow. So Bryan, thank you so much for taking this time to talk with us tonight.
You're welcome. I'm honored.
So for some of our youth who may not be familiar with you, what brought you to KBC and how long have you been a member here at Kirkwood Baptist Church?
I've been a member at Kirkwood Baptist Church, I think, since about 1988 when I moved to St. Louis. That's old. That's last millennium. I did my surgery residency here at St. Louis University and then left and went down to Texas, went to Baltimore, then Texas, then Memphis, and then came back to St. Louis. In 1988 is when I came back and joined Kirkwood Baptist at that point.
That's great.
So that's what, 32 years, something like that?
32, wow. One thing that I'm asking each of our guests at the very beginning of the interview is what role religion played in their childhood. So can you tell us a little bit about what role religion played in your childhood growing up?
Sure. Religion was very big in my childhood. My dad was a Baptist pastor that became a Baptist missionary to Brazil. So we're in and out of church doing all kinds of things ever since I can remember.
Wow.
Sunday school, Sunday nights, Wednesdays, and so forth. So it was always a big deal in our family.
Wow. So did you spend time in Brazil yourself?
Sure. I went from about age 8 to 18 in Brazil. Went to grade school and part of most of high school there.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I don't know how many of our youth have lived out of the States, but I'm sure that's quite an experience to spend a lot of your time living outside of the United States. In the intro, I mentioned that you were a surgeon at Mercy Hospital. What's it been like throughout over those 30 years to work in the medical world and to be a Christian in the process? Because I know sometimes that can be a little bit difficult.
I'm a surgeon. I deal specifically with a lot of patients that are injured in things like car accidents, gunshot shootings. We're the kind of surgeon that takes care of those kinds of people. And to me, that's the quintessential part of Christianity, is taking care of other people. About 75% of Jesus's miracles were taking care of people injured or ill. So, as far as I'm concerned, if Jesus did it, so should we. So it's pretty simple. Having said that, not everybody who practices medicine is a Christian. I know that. Mm-hmm. Most of them are nice whether they're Christian or not.
Yeah.
So my religion played an important part in choosing to become a surgeon.
Yeah. And so can you tell us a little bit more about that? So was it because of you reading and understanding that part of Jesus' ministry was through healing that you wanted to go into surgery and in the medical field? Or was there another reason for that?
I wasn't smart enough to figure out all those things about Jesus before I chose medicine, to be honest.
Okay.
I chose it because it was fascinating and interesting. and I was really into chemistry and physics in college. But I thought, I'm not going to be doing that the rest of my life, so what else could I do?
Yeah.
What I thought was, okay, let's try medicine. And when you get to medicine, the most fun part is surgery.
Oh.
They pay you to have fun. So. the religion really wasn't part of the decision making at the time, I have to say.
I
That's
think
the way it is.
one thing with science and religion, it's kind of a hot topic to talk about, but I think I think for some degree our youth have gone through this thought process of, science spends a lot of time trying to understand the world that we live in. And for some people, they say that that's a substitute for Christianity or for faith or religion in general. How have you been able to keep both science and religion in conversation with each other, but also have it live in existence side by side versus being at it opposing? Because I know some people will view it as opposing interests, but I believe you've definitely taken it where it kind of, they work together in some way. Is that correct?
Absolutely, they work together. For most people that are into the science in some form have to put it together. There is no doubt that some of the traditional interpretations of religious things are in conflict with what we know about the real world currently. But nevertheless, I'm a strong believer in that both science teaches us that finding out new things is important because we find out new things. In religion, we find out new things too. And we have to work around and see, okay, how does it challenge us in our thinking about what I thought 20 years ago? Where did I come from? Where did that idea come from? Were they right 500 years ago or not? Were they right as a Christian, or were they right as a scientist? Who knows? That's why we investigate those things.
That's really cool. And other than just being a surgeon in a hospital, how else currently today is your faith impacting the way that you live your life?
The way religion impacts my life is by being compassionate to other people, particularly those that are injured or much less fortunate, severe diseases. Besides injuries, I also treat a lot of people with acute surgical conditions that may cause them to die if they don't get treatment.
Okay.
And compassion, empathy is about feeling what other people feel. Compassion is about doing what other people need done in their life. And that's kind of the difference between empathy and compassion. So compassion is doing, and I think that's what I feel most comfortable doing, is doing things for others.
Because it sounds like empathy is extremely important to have as a Christian and as a person living in a world to care for others, but it also needs to lead into compassion where you not only feel what other people are feeling, but you decide to actually act upon that and care for others.
Right. The entire book of James is talking about actions. If your actions don't accompany what your thoughts are, it's probably not very good thoughts.
Yeah. One other little thing I wanted to talk about that doesn't pertain to the medical field, but you write, before the pandemic, you would write and put in the choir mailboxes a little like thought or blurb about a scripture reference or the scripture passage for the upcoming week or sermon. Can you talk just a little bit about that? Like, if none of our youth have read anything like that, what is that you were doing, and why were you doing that?
One of my interests has always been in theology. In fact, I finished a master's in theology a few years ago at Eden Seminary. And I also love music, which is why I'm in the choir, of course. Not nearly as good to be a professional musician, but I love it. Like most of us love music.
Yeah.
But one of the things that always worried me is how do we get, when the words of the hymns or the choral or just for any music for that, what do they mean? What are they talking about? Most of us, some of my favorite hymns talk about theology that I don't agree with, but I love them anyway. And I think that's okay, but part of me wanted to tell my other colleagues in the choir, this is what they're actually saying. It's a beautiful song, but is it what we want to, is it really what you believe now? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not trying to take one stand or another, but think about what it means. I typically have tried to meld that with the main scripture reading for the week, because typically they are related.
Okay.
So that's where that comes in, our narrative lectionary series, which is the gospel selection or the reading selection we have for the Sunday, because it typically is related to some extent with what the choir is singing or the hymns that we're singing.
That's really cool. And finally, one of the things that we want to talk about at the very end is to ask you, what would be one takeaway from, your life as a surgeon, or part of your story that you would want to share and have the youth remember during this time?
I would say that our society and God has a need for many kinds of people. I know not everyone is going to be a surgeon, even though it's the most fun part of medicine. and I know that not everybody wants to be a theologian and study something about the Bible every day. But there's plenty of other things you can do that are also equally as important. They may not be fun to me, but they're going to be useful to you and to us, and therefore to God, sooner or later in your life. So enjoy the things that you love to do.
I think that's some wonderful words and a great takeaway for our youth. So, Bryan, Troop, we can't thank you enough for your time that you spent with us to share your story, and it truly has been a pleasure.
Well, thank you. I'm honored.